Josh Jacobs thinks the Green Bay Packers gave the defending champs their hardest fight last season, but that's not enough to make them contenders this year.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast to iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts, you will find Locked On Packers, the #1 Packers podcast on the internet. And the show for fans who know what happened, they want to know why and how. Thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. We hope you like starting your day with us as much as we like starting our day with you. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. In a couple interviews now this offseason, Josh Jacobs has mentioned that the Packers gave the Eagles their toughest fight this season. And I think if you go back to the playoff game, you can certainly make the case that the Packers defense did the best job against this Eagles team this season. The Rams in the playoffs gave them the best offensive shot this season, although you can also add the Commanders at the end of last season. Some turnovers aided in that as well in terms of scoring points. Efficiency, I mean, the Rams had a shot to win the game late. The Commanders actually won, but they beat Kenny Pickett, so a different scenario here. Brian Gutekunst doesn't want to hear it. We talked to him at the Combine. He was asked about changing the team to meet the Eagles where they were. And he rightly pointed out that we've had these same discussions in the past with the 49ers. And you can go back to the Aaron Rodgers era with the Mike McCarthy teams and Aaron Rodgers and the 49ers being the big bad that they're chasing. And it changes. Every couple years, it changes. And even when the 49ers are the big bad wolf, sometimes injuries befall them. And all of a sudden, you're looking at a totally different set of teams in the postseason. And if you built your team only one way, and this idea that, you have to build your team to beat the teams in your division. No, you don't. You have to build the team that makes them the best team. And so this is a continuation for me anyway, in the storyline of the offseason, which is building an adaptive team, building a nimble team, building a team that can face any challenge. And when we go back and we look, it's not just that the Eagles beat the Packers in the playoffs. I think it's that the Eagles beat the Packers in the playoffs playing a certain style, and the Vikings beat the Packers twice in the regular season playing a very different style. The Lions played a somewhat similar style. Certainly the second meeting with the Vikings, where the Vikings play a lot more man coverage. That is the way the Lions wanted to play man blitz. I don't know that we can really make much of the Lions game, or the Bears game at the end of the year. No Jordan Love, no Christian Watson. That being said, we know injuries happen every year. They were able to win games with Malik Willis. They can believe that if they need to, they can win games with Malik Willis. But they've added players offensively. And this has been the theme of our show basically since the draft, is you're scheme-proofing this offense. But in a lot of ways, they're matchup-proofing the defense too. That's what Nate Hobbs is. Nate Hobbs can play on the boundary. Nate Hobbs can play on the slot. Keyshawn Nixon can play on the boundary. He can play on the slot. Javon Bullard can play safety. He can play on the slot. Quay Walker can play off the ball. He can line up on the edge and rush the passer. He can line up in the A-gap and rush the passer. Edgerrin Cooper can play off the ball, stack linebacker, traditional. He can line up in the A-gap. He can mug that A-gap and he can recover. And he can be the middle runner in Tampa too. And you can be disguised You can be aggressive, you can be passive, you can be anything that you want to be. And it's not an inspirational quote. It is a fact about your football team. The best teams are adaptive. The best teams do not have to worry about styles making fights because they're just good enough. Like the Eagles last year were good enough that it didn't matter who they were going to play. There was no style of team that was going to give them problems. They were just really, really good at what they do. Now, some teams like to be multiple. The Bill Belichick teams were always like that. Hey, we want to be able to do whatever it is required that week to win. And there are famous examples of them, handing the ball off 50 times. There was the running back that they had that they ran the ball. I think he ran the ball 30 times and within 2 weeks he was cut. It was really effective. And then they were just like, nah. And then 2 weeks later, they would throw it 50 times because that was what the game required. And if you want to be successful over time, people are going to be able to scout what you do. They're going to be able to scout the scheme. You have to be able to change. This is why Matt LaFleur loves the play off the play. You have to be able to face any kind of team. So these teams that want to play a bunch of man coverage, well, now you got to run with Jaden Reed and Matthew Golden and Savion Williams and Christian Watson eventually. And if you want to be a two deep team, you got to deal with Savion Williams in space. Go tackle him. You got to deal with Marshawn Lloyd, who was one of the best tackle breakers in the nation at USC 2 years ago. Josh Jacobs, one of the best tackle breakers in the league last year. You want to play two high safeties? Here's downhill with Anthony Belton and Aaron Banks in the run game. Now, they're probably both not going to be on the field, but you get the idea. The whole point of this offseason has been adaptability. It has not been chasing a matchup with the Eagles or a matchup with the Lions or a matchup with the Rams. It's been saying, we want to be able to beat any of these teams. And then you don't know who you're going to face in the AFC if you make it to the Super Bowl. The Chiefs, the Bills, the Ravens. I mean, these teams, in a lot of ways, could not be more different. And so you have to be malleable if you want to sustain success. And as much as I have made fun of the Packers changing their offense because a certain quarterback demanded it from 2020 to 2021, even though he had his best season in years, it is important to be willing to evolve, be willing to say, hey, this player we thought was going to start for us, it turns out he can't start for us. And that's just the reality of the situation that the Packers find themselves in, because any team finds themselves in that situation. Can you adapt? Do you have the right coaches? Do you have the front office that can admit to a mistake, that can get off a mistake, that can go find a street free agent who's going to help you right away? Can you do that? Will you do that? I think the Packers have shown a willingness. The front office certainly has shown a willingness to scour practice squads and a proficiency that is, frankly, unmatched around the league. To just pluck guys off a practice squad, July, August, September, who can come in and make an impact for you when you need them. Not every team can do that, but part of that is coaching. Part of that is what your front office is giving you. What are they providing you? And then do you have the right guys in the building to make those players work? It's not about beating the Eagles in a vacuum. It's not about beating the Rams in a vacuum or beating the Lions or the Vikings or the Bears, oh my, in a vacuum. It's not about that. It's about building a team that can beat all of them. A team that can beat any of them. And the Packers have shown over the last 2 seasons, they can beat anybody. Now, do you have a team that can do it consistently? That's the next step that this team has to take. Do you have a team that can do it in the postseason? So, I'm going to talk out of both sides of my mouth because it isn't just about the matchups, but let's talk about some of those matchups. We'll do it next on Locked On Packers. Say goodbye to sticky notes, scribbled plans on the fridge, and overlapping calendar invites. The Skylight calendar is here to bring clarity to the chaos and help families stay organized without the stress. This sleek digital display syncs with your existing calendars, Google, Apple, Outlook, and more, making it simple to track appointments, practices, dinners, and reminders, all in one easy-to-see place. Before Skylight even came on to be a partner with Locked On, I wanted to get one. I had texted my wife about getting one. This is something that I can get behind personally, right? Because I'm not the most organized person and I need a little bit of help. Skylight can give that to me. Right now, Skylight is offering our listeners $30 off their 15-inch calendars by going to skylightcal.com/NFL. So Skylight, SKYLIGHT, cal.com/NFL for $30 off that 15-inch calendar. Skylight.com/NFL. Against the Eagles, the Philly pass rush has lost its teeth a little bit. You lose Milton Williams. Brandon Graham retires. It's not quite as ferocious because they can't throw waves of pass rush at you. And the Packers have tried to basically make their offensive line injury proof because they're going to have 7 guys that they think are capable of starting. So that changes the equation if you go back and you look at that Eagles game. We've done this exercise before. And then if you're going to play a bunch of shell coverage and say, hey, throw underneath to Josh Jacobs, which I think the Packers got to a little too late in that game, they've added a player in Savion Williams who's another guy who can just be an underneath safety release valve. They'll bring back, if he can be healthy for whatever game against the Eagles they have, Marshawn Lloyd, who's another one of those guys who can punish you for playing too deep. Tucker Kraft, can he be more of the part of the equation? What are they getting from Jahad Campbell, given his injuries? What are they getting from Nakobe Dean, given his injuries? They bring back Zach Bond, but this is a defense that has lost some pieces. You lose Darius Slay. You lose CJ Gardner-Johnson. You can attack this team differently. Would I pick the Packers tomorrow? Probably not. But do I think that gap has closed considerably and that in a matchup, blow for blow, pound for pound, play for play, the Packers can beat them? Absolutely, I do. They should have beat them in week 1 in Brazil on a skating rink. Can the pass rush be a little bit better? But even with the pass rush not being great, the coverage was really good in the playoffs. And I expect the coverage to be better, whether Jair Alexander is back on this team or not. And let's just operate for the moment because the expectation is he's going to be gone. I'm still going to operate under that assumption for the moment. Okay, when we talk about the matchups here. So they're certainly closer to Philly. And I know we've done some of this before in terms of like where is the talent, but I'm talking about strictly based on matchups. It should be easier to drop back this year with the offensive line and the depth that they have. If you have an injury, it'll be easier to deal with. And if you can have a healthy offensive line, that makes it easier to run the ball against a front that has lost bodies. That makes it easier then to be in third and medium. You don't have to worry about that ferocious front getting after you. Some of the exotic looks that Vic Fangio on third down can cook up. That is certainly, with the additions that the Packers made and the subtractions that the Eagles have, is a matchup that is now much, much more even. And for the Packers, I think you can feel better today than you did 6 months ago. The Lions, this is more or less the same team that you have gone shot for shot with the last 2 seasons. Second game, when Jordan Love is settled in as the starter, when you're not like all rookies, you won that game in Detroit. Then you play a home game where the defense, speaking of giving them your best shot, the defense played as good a game against the Detroit Lions last year as any team in the NFL. And it was some drops. It was some, I would say some injuries contributed to that. There were some situational issues. What did they have? 8 third down drops in that first rainy game at Lambeau. Then the second game, they have a lead in the fourth quarter. They have a touchdown taken off the board, a ridiculous call, and it's the last possession of the game that they lose to the Lions. Well, the Lions have lost some bodies on defense. You replace Carlton Davis with DJ Reed, which is a move is very annoying because DJ Reed is very good. I don't know if you've seen the videos of Aiden Hutchinson. I don't know how I'm not a doctor. I'm not a physical therapist. I don't know how he's supposed to be moving this far removed, but like the whole idea, like, oh, he might play for this. Like he is not 100% right now today. I don't even know that he's 75%. It doesn't look great. And they still don't have a secondary pass rusher. The coaching staff, you've probably taken a step back. And the Packers are better. Can you better face their man coverage now than you did in December? Well, that's what Matthew Golden and Savion Williams are for. That is what they are designed to be. Do you have better answers now to block that front with Aaron Banks and Anthony Belton? Hopefully you do. We don't know if they do, but hopefully we do. You have to like that matchup better. This is, again, a nip and tuck series the last 2 years. Even though the Packers are 1-3, they absolutely could have won that second game in Detroit if one call or two calls that were ridiculous in the moment are called what I would say correctly. The Vikings is so tricky because of JJ McCarthy, but the game that the Packers lost in Minnesota at the end of last year that everyone likes to point to, Sam Darnold had an out-of-body experience in that game. He saw God for 4 quarters, and the Packers still had a chance late in that game to get one stop with a chance to go tie win the game. Like the Packers in the second half of that game, you can say that Minnesota took their foot off the gas. Okay, but the Packers came back. All they needed was one stop late in that game. Now, they couldn't get it. But again, that is with Sam Darnold playing literally the best game of his career. And he's like blacked out. I mean, it's like Buddy Hield the other night in Game 7. You just don't expect that to happen consistently. And you certainly don't expect essentially a rookie quarterback to come in and do that. So it's hard to really talk about the offensive matchup here. But adding another player who can play in the slot, you have a better matchup now with Justin Jefferson than you did. You've got a better second corner to play Jordan Addison, because now, you don't have to worry as much about Keyshawn Nixon being the 1, and then you've got an inferior player to him theoretically as your 2. There's just a trickle down effect that really can add up here. Now the Vikings made some additions on defense. They kept some guys that it didn't seem like they were going to be able to keep. But the safety room is I think a big question right now. Their cornerback room, I still don't love. This is an offense that if you can protect and if Jordan Love can move, that's a big part of these matchups. Jordan Love's ability to move. You can better attack if they're going to do the thing that they did last year and play a bunch of man coverage against you. Love has to be able to move, make plays, make throws to attack down the field and be patient enough to find underneath opportunities, but they have to be able to block to do that. That was part of the problem in that Lions game. They just their starting offensive line played bad against the bad news Bears Lions offense or defensive line. So you have to get a better performance from those guys, but that's why you go out and you spend money on Aaron Banks and you're going to move on from Josh Myers. The Packers didn't just get better in a vacuum. They got better in this particular matchup. And if you don't want to look in the NFC West, I don't know what else to say, but Matt LaFleur has owned Sean McVay in the NFL. It's one of those weird ones. I mean, it's not that weird. Matt LaFleur's a really good coach, but Matt LaFleur doesn't lose to Sean McVay. And that defense is still just not very good. I mean, I went on a rant the other day on social media about how I don't understand how so many smart people I hear on podcasts and listen to and watch go, the contenders in the NFC, and they rattle off the Eagles and the Lions and the Rams, and they forget the Packers. And it's like, do you guys remember that Rams defense stunk out loud last year for long stretches? They had one great game in the postseason where Sam Darnold played like the same Darnold we've seen for most of his career. And Jared Verse and Braden Fisk and that defensive line played incredibly. And they won. And then they made some impressive plays. We remember Jared Verse just MFing the Eagles offensive line, but forget that they couldn't get stops for most of that game. And so it's not like they played great. Like Matthew Stafford went on a heater in the second half in the snow, or that game would have been over. They couldn't stop the Eagles either. I don't see why they would be able to stop the Packers now, when I expect the Packers offense to be better than the third ranked offense by DVOA last year. Why would they be worse? They're more talented today than they were last year. So I like the Packers even more in that particular matchup. I don't see why the 49ers would be better. Yeah, they have an easy schedule, but that qualitatively doesn't matter. So when you look at this from a matchup standpoint, while you don't want to chase the matchups, we got to build this team to beat Team X. What the Packers have done here is they built a team that can face a two-shell Eagles defense that can rush with 4, and a team that can deal with the chaos defense of Brian Flores. They built a defense that is better equipped to stop the power run games with front 7 players like Edgerrin Cooper and the emergence of Quay Walker against the Eagles and the Lions. But they have added to the secondary. Nate Hobbs, we'll see about Jair Alexander, to stop the Rams, the Lions, the Bucks potentially. So the matchups are better for the Packers because the team is better. Like this is a little bit like testing the proof of concept. Okay, if you want to matchup proof your team, well, how do you look across matchups? It turns out pretty good. Pretty good. All right, let's finish up a Locked On Packers. By the way, Matthew Golden, our rookie orientation series with our friend Chance, we had him on to talk Texans. That's coming tomorrow on Locked On Packers. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. The other night, 2 crazy comebacks. The Knicks come back from down 20 to beat the Celtics. The Nuggets trailing the whole game until the final seconds. They steal game 1. These are the moments as sports fans that we live for. And FanDuel is there to make it easy to stay in the game. Before tip-off, live, player props, performance trends, same-game parlays. You got so many ways. They give you so many ways to play smart and win big. Plus, how could a $200 bonus bet add to your excitement if that first $5 bet wins? Seems like it'd be pretty cool. Well, that's a thing that is happening right now. New to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. I want to close the show here, spending just a minute talking about Savion Williams. But I want to frame it through this lens. I want to frame it as an apology. Because this is like a me thing. You guys know when it comes to receivers that I care deeply about the production. History cares deeply about the production. And so I just looked at the numbers and made this assumption. The Packers were just not going to draft him. just wasn't like, it did not productive enough. And for me personally, not the kind of player I'm normally going to get behind. It's one of the reasons why I was not super high on Matthew Golden. Now, just to be transparent about this, I'm in a group chat with some friends, some Packers media friends, and Savion Williams came up. I think it was March, and I was just sort of like, nah, it's not it. Packers are never going to draft him. He sucks. And I was very dismissive about it. I had not watched Savion Williams, but I knew what the numbers looked like. I had watched Jack Besh, and I had seen a lot of the nonsense parts of the offense run through Savion Williams. And I was just sort of like, this is not real. This is nothing. And that was unfair of me, obviously. And do I feel bad about it? Like, that's part of why I'm doing this. As a check on myself and as a way of saying, I will not bring the takes to the podcast, or I try not to bring the takes to the podcast. I try not to take them out of the group chat until they have been tested, which is to say, I try not to bring them to you until I've actually done the work to find out what I truly believe. But this was a case where I went, that's not a Packer. And as a result, or one of the reasons why I didn't think he was going to be a Packer, he's not a good player. And I'm sorry about that. I'm about that feeling. And you don't care because I didn't ever say that on the podcast. But the reason I'm bringing it up is because I think it's important from a process standpoint that we're able to say we can make mistakes here in evaluation. And we can make mistakes believing we know more than we do when it comes to the Packers process. And we can make mistakes being too declarative about certain, thresholds and those things. And I think it is still an extremely useful way of looking at the draft. But I saw a lot of people, and I'm seeing more and more people out there, content creators, acting like they knew who the Packers were going to pick. Declaring it's this guy. It's got to be this guy. No, it doesn't. And it doesn't serve anybody to make those sort of declarative statements. Because they are willing to go outside of their norms. They are willing to go outside of their thresholds. They are willing to take chances on players whose tape they just loved. And the reason I bring this up is as a way of trying to be transparent about the fact that for most of the process, not only did I not believe Savion Williams was going to be a Packer, I did not believe he was a great prospect based solely on my priors on the things that I think are important on the numbers. I had not watched him. And I think that is too common a problem on social media because everyone has a platform where you can just say something and no one knows how much work you've done to get there. I try and only bring you takes that have been vetted by information that I believe in. And so when I actually got a chance to sit down and watch Savion Williams, I went, holy crap. I still didn't think the Packers were going to draft him. It was still very surprising to me, ultimately, that they picked him because of the things that we've talked about. But it was a useful reminder to me to not believe too much in the things that I think I know about the Packers, about scouting, about their process, about whatever it is, to just be willing to adapt. Let's go back to how we started this show. To be malleable, to be adaptable, and say, hey, look, here's this really fun player. I know he doesn't fit the normal paradigm, but what if they were going to? And that, I hope, is something that can inform the way that I bring this show to you. And that's why I'm bringing it up. Because I want to be able to next year say, hey, look, here are some guys that are maybe not the prototype, but there is something that the Packers are missing. And I feel like I have done that in the past. But I want to be, and this is the reason I'm putting it out here, is to tell you and to really, as a way of checking myself, putting it out there in the world to say, I want to be able to next year and the year after that and the year, however long that I do this, be able to say to you, look, the Packers prefer these things, but to be less sure of what I know and be able to say, hey, here's a couple players that maybe we do a whole show. Hey, here's a couple players who are just really fun. And I don't know if the Packers are going to take him. I don't know. Like, they don't fit the norms and the history and all that stuff, but they'd be really fun. And I feel like I did not do a good enough job of bringing that to you, because if I had, Savion Williams would 100% been on that list, because he is really fun. And the more I dig into him, like, okay, well, yeah, Jack Bash like wildly outproduced him, except that's not true. By touches, they found a way to give Savion Williams a ton more touches because they used him as a runner. They used him as a wildcat. They used him on designed touches, schemed, whether it's runs, whether it's screens, it was just, if you look at the number of times that Savion Williams had the ball in his hands, it was a lot. And it wasn't just because he couldn't play receiver. No, he was a captain. The team loved him. They wanted to use his athletic ability. He is a special athlete. And so I just want everyone to remember, but mostly me, this is physician heal thyself, to be a little less rigid about the things that we think we know. It's, and frankly, a good lesson for all of our lives. We can use this in our daily lives. Don't be quite so sure of the things that you know. It's like the old Men in Black line, Tommy Lee Jones. 1,000 years ago, they were sure the earth was flat. Whatever, 500 years ago, they were sure that the earth or the sun revolved around the earth. And yesterday, you knew you were alone on this planet. I'm butchering the line. But imagine what you'll know tomorrow. I think we can all stand to use a little bit more humility when it comes to the things that we think we know about all of this. And I'm putting my hand up and saying, me too. Because I made this mistake with Savion Williams, and I'm glad we didn't really do it on the show very much. We didn't really talk about him. I think I did probably on the show more than once dismiss out of hand, like, yeah, they're just not going to draft a guy like that. And that was a bad job by me. I need to be better about knowing what I know and what I don't know. And I will try. I'm here to tell you I will try. All right. Back tomorrow with a rookie orientation series, the first of our rookie orientation series with, appropriately, the first round pick. A conversation with Chancellor Johnson, who is a former Green Bay TV journalist now in Houston. Had a great sit down with Matthew Golden. So a unique perspective there. We won't hold it against him that he went to Arizona State and not Syracuse. Different journalism schools there, but that's okay. So a lot more to come here on Locked On Packers. Follow me on all the social medias. Follow the podcast on all the social medias. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you get podcasts, over on our YouTube page, so you can stay locked on Packers.